Welcome to Bunny Trails, a whimsical adventure of idioms and other turns of phrase. I'm Dan Pugh.
And I'm Shauna Harrison. Each week, we take an idiom or other turn of phrase and try to tell the story from its entry into the English language to how it's used today. I didn't really get into Beanie Babies, not even when kids at school started trading them like they were precious gems. But then I saw Aaron, the lovely emerald green bear with a four-leaf clover on its chest, and suddenly I had to have one. Just like that, I jumped on the bandwagon.
I never jumped on that bandwagon, but there are a few that I don't want to talk about, but did in fact jump on. So
It was Pogs, right?
oh my goodness, I forgot about Pogs until you just said that, but I had a NASA rocket that was just literally full of Pogs.
Amazing.
Oh my goodness, I had so many Pogs.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, the shame.
So fantastic. And people are like, what do you do with them? It's hard to explain.
Oh man, wow.
So good.
I had such good slimers though.
According to Oxford English Dictionary, to jump on the bandwagon means, quote, to join many others in supporting or taking part in something that seems promising, fashionable, or popular, in early use, especially in political contexts, end quote. The OED also makes note that the phrase is, quote, typically disparaging, with the connotation that doing so is opportunistic or disingenuous, end quote.
Yeah, I definitely would say that I do not hear the term bandwagon being used as a positive thing anymore. If you've jumped on a bandwagon, that is something to be ashamed of, or something that others who were already here early, like we've always been a fan, and now you're bandwagoning on because your tight end is dating the world's most popular and well-known musical artist, and so now all these people are following a team because of XYZ. It's not my team, so I didn't care, but
Right.
whatever. But definitely that's the kind of thing where people are like, you're not a real fan, you're just a bandwagoner, you're just jumping on the bandwagon.
Exactly, and it is typically used with that negative connotation these days, so.
Yeah, I should be clear. I don't care whether why you jump on my particular bandwagon. I'm just happy to have more people that are excited about the same things I'm excited about. So I'm actually okay.
That's fair.
And if you end up leaving early because something else is cooler or sleeker or sexier, then I guess whatever. It's fine.
I might be antisocial because sometimes when people, like, if lots of people are jumping on the bandwagon of a thing that I like, I kind of jump off. I'm like, God,
you're like, no, that's mine.
It's like I can't like it because
you're a hipster.
It's like all these people like this now, and it was my thing.
I liked it back before it was cool. Now that it's cool, I don't like it anymore.
But the funny thing is like I don't even want people to know about it. It's not like like I just liked that being my thing. But yeah, okay. Anyway. So what exactly is a bandwagon? Oxford English Dictionary tells us that a bandwagon is, quote, a large wagon, especially one capable of carrying a band of musicians as part of a parade, a political campaign, or a traveling circus, end quote.
That's the most disappointing definition I've ever heard. I wanted it to be like the word band meant this thing that I didn't know that it meant. And you're just like, it's a wagon with a band on it.
It's this most straightforward expression. And I think that people don't know that it just means what it says.
I just didn't. That's such a boring answer. I just wanted it to be something cooler.
Yeah, that's why I didn't give it a lot of lead up because it really wasn't that interesting.
Fair. Its juice wouldn't be worth the squeeze.
Well, this term began appearing in print around the 1830s. Here's one example from the Boston Morning Post out of Massachusetts, U.S. Quote, Church is with a division in Indiana, and Chamberlain now drives the bandwagon in Upper Canada, end quote. The term didn't take very long to start to shift in its usage. It appears in a political editorial dated September 15, 1842, published in the Ohio Democrat out of Ohio, United States. Here's an excerpt. Quote, such is an abstract of this day's proceedings. Such was the end of the great Corwin spree, which cost the Whig leaders $100 besides a week's labor. Yes, let it go out to the people that the grand result of Corwin's visit to this country was that two prominent Whigs bolted and made speeches at the Democratic meeting, within gunshot of where Corwin spoke. We feel no disposition to crow over the unfortunate, but we tell the Whig leaders, with their 4 bandwagons, their foreign silk flags, and their giraffes, that the days of humbuggery have gone by. The sober second thought has come over the people, and the Whiggery will be weighed in the balance. End quote. So while the bandwagon here seems to be literal, the tone is satirical, and the imagery aligns with circus showmanship. Giraffes.
Giraffes is where you go when you think of a circus, huh? Interesting.
Well, it mentioned giraffes, so that's where I was bringing in the circus.
See.
They brought the giraffes.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
I read the allusion to circus.
All right. No, that's totally fair. I'd already forgotten that giraffes was in that. I was too stuck on the word humbuggery, which I was like, is that Bah Humbug? That's the Bah Humbug of Dickensian fame, right? That's
I mean, yeah.
yeah, that's Scrooge.
There's
Ebenezer Scrooge.
Versus Whiggery.
Bah Humbug. I know about the Whig Party. I know what Whiggery is. It's fine.
Okay, fair, but humbuggery was new.
Well, I just hadn't heard it outside of, Christmas Carol.
Fair, yeah. Outside of that political reference, most uses at this time for bandwagon were entirely literal. Here's an example from the Daybook out of Virginia, United States, dated March 26, 1866. Quote, "The circus, the great show of Dan Costello, has arrived, and I will open tonight. The excitement amongst the juveniles in the city is great, and when the great bandwagon, hauled by 52 horses, makes its appearance, we do not know what will become of the boys and girls. And then to see the show, the lions, the great pony, the kicking mule, and above all, the clown. Step this way, Mr. Merryman. Coming, sir, coming." End quote.
See, the lions is what I would think with lion tamers, right? And that kind of thing. Yeah. Or elephants balancing on a beach ball. I'm pretty sure.
Apparently a kicking mule.
I'm pretty sure I never went to a circus. I'm pretty sure I only saw animated circus things.
The main reason I wanted to share this particular example is that it truly is that most common usage of bandwagon at the time. Bandwagon was the term for a large number of people or animals on a big wagon, like those in a circus or music group, who were being transported to their next performance. There are mentions of people jumping onto bandwagons, but most were literal, a person jumping up onto a wagon. As we get to the late 1800s, though, we start to see our phrase used in its full figurative glory, as in this example from a story published in the Press and Daily Dakotan, April 28, 1883, out of South Dakota, U.S. Quote, L.E. Johnson, member of the Capital Syndicate, who has invested largely at Ordway, Brown County, was in town last night. He made an offer of one corner lot to a Yanktonian if he would fall down and worship the syndicate and then jump on the bandwagon. End quote. The man decided to pass on the offer.
All right, that's fair. One corner lot to a Yanktonian. Well, all right. It's like it's a whole nother language.
Yep. Moving into the 1900s, the phrase appears in the Bridgeport Evening Farmer, September 4th, 1909, out of Connecticut, United States. Here's an excerpt. Quote, everyone is seeking homes along North Main Street, 3 homes on Thorn Street, and cellars for 2 more being dug. House on Clark Street, house on Birmingham Street, where 6 months ago it was green fields. 50 to 60 houses built within the last 12 months north of St. Vincent Hospital. Are you going to purchase now this fall? Jump in the bandwagon of prosperity. End quote. There are quite a few examples from the early 1900s where the phrase is used in this more positive way. Instead of saying that people are just following the crowd, it's implied that they're taking advantage of a good deal. They're going with the trend and it benefits them in some way. Another example of this appears in the Saturday News, published July 25th, 1912, out of South Dakota, U.S., in a half-page ad for Gilruth's Package Grocery, Watertown. Here's an excerpt. Quote, come in and let us show you how cheaply you can buy groceries if you buy them for cash and in quantities. Jump onto the bandwagon now. End quote.
That is really interesting to see the way it's being used with these it's a good thing here. You're supposed to jump onto this bandwagon, right?
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
it obviously has taken a shift somewhere along the way, but it is really cool to see it being used in a way that is overly positive when that's not my experience with it
Right.
anymore.
This ad is in the form of an article, which is titled Difference Between Cash and Credit, High Cost of Living versus Long Price. This is like an interesting insight into the typical way of life for many individuals in the US during that time frame. And we're going to read a little more of this piece in our behind the scenes, which airs every Friday on Patreon. Find it at patreon.com/bunnytrailspod. The phrase is also used in an ad for J.C. Penney Company, found in the Imperial Valley Press out of California, U.S., dated July 10th, 1930. Here's a snippet. Quote, "Down go prices, up go sales, more goods bought, more goods consumed, more goods manufactured, more jobs for everybody, more money in circulation, more money in your pocket, more prosperity, more happiness. Jump aboard the bandwagon, buy now." End quote. And then the ad lists different pieces of popular clothing items for men, women, and children. So,
Did fun fact about James Cash Penney, who was the guy who created the J.C. Penney Company? His father was a stern man who made him start paying for his own clothes when he was 8 years old. And so that was one of the reasons why when he founded the J.C. Penney Company, he wanted to make affordable clothes.
huh, I did not know that. Well, he did make affordable clothes.
Fun fact for you today. Here you go. Doing great work here on Bunny Trails. And yes, his name was James Cash Penney.
It's amazing.
He was right to go with J.C. Penney actually as for the company.
Absolutely. 100% good marketing choice. The phrase continued to be seen in ads and political commentary, and here's one example where the writing covers multiple purposes. This is found in the article titled Marching Through Berlin, found in the January 10th, 1943 edition of the Detroit Evening Times out of Michigan, United States. Quote, "This is the opening number of the American Weekly's 1943 series of song hits, selected by America's ace band leaders. Jump aboard the bandwagon, for here we go, on an exciting trip to the outposts of musical popularity, with We'll Be Singing Hallelujah, Marching Through Berlin, picked by Von Monroe." End quote. So, the phrase is used playfully in a musical promotional context, inviting readers to join in on what's popular, and it's linking in some patriotic sentiment, popular culture, and the notion of being part of a rising trend all in one sentence. We have several modern uses to cover, and we'll get to those right after we say thank you to our sponsors.
This episode is sponsored by our amazing patrons on Patreon. And the cool thing about Patreon is it is 100% free to join the Bunny Trails community. We have new things every weekday on the feeds. On Mondays, we have a conversation about what movies, shows, books, podcasts, and whatever else everyone is enjoying. Tuesdays see early access to the week's podcast. Wednesdays have all the links, books, songs, and other content mentioned in the week's episode. Thursday has patrons-only polls. And Fridays are our lightly edited, behind-the-scenes video featuring all the cut content, goofs, and bonus facts you could imagine.
We've got some other pretty cool stuff too, like original digital artwork once a month made by me, and direct access to talk with us. No algorithms getting in the way of what we see or don't see. Plus, you can get awesome name recognition like Pat Rowe does every episode. And our top spot is currently occupied by the amazing Mary Halsig Lopez. You can join the Bunny Trails community for free at Bunny Trails Pod on Patreon.
That's patreon.com/bunnytrailspod.
Although the movie The Bandwagon originally premiered in 1953, it continues to find new audiences today. The title refers to the literal bandwagon, but in this case, the film almost turns the phrase on its head. Instead of showing people jumping on a trend, it presents the kind of spectacle that draws people in. Polished, larger-than-life entertainment. One example is the Girl Hunt Ballet, a stylized dance sequence featuring Fred Astaire and Sid Charisse, choreographed by Michael Kidd, and it's designed to mimic a gritty detective story. Thanks to Turner Classic Movies, the scene is available on YouTube. Here's a portion of Astaire's iconic monologue as he introduces the femme fatale and sets the tone for the noir-inspired number. Quote, "The city was asleep. Joints were closed. Rats, hoodlums, killers were in their holes. I hate killers. My name is Rod Riley, a detective. Somewhere in a furnished room, some guy was practicing a horn. It was a lonesome sound. It crawled on my spine. I had just finished a tough case. I was ready to hit the sack. I could smell trouble a mile off, and this poor kid was in trouble. Big trouble. She was scared as a turkey in November." End quote.
It's very noir-esque.
So good. And it's like, yeah, it's fantastic. The scene totally plays like a noir parody. There's dramatic narration, moody music. It's tightly choreographed, like movement that it really brings in the pulp atmosphere. And the scene is practically a trope on its own, frankly. The phrase appears in the lyrics to the song Bandwagon, released in 1987 by REM as part of the Athens, Georgia Inside Out soundtrack, and later included in compilation albums. Here are some of the lyrics. Quote, "Look at all the flags and all the banners waving. Open up our arms, a magic kingdom, open-armed, and greet us all. Come on aboard. I promise you, you won't hurt the horse. We treat him well. We feed him well. There's lots of room for you on the bandwagon." End quote. So the phrase is used with a tone of irony, inviting the listener to join in something popular or idealistic, while also hinting at the absurdity or over-the-top nature of like mass enthusiasm. This is more of a novelty track than like a standout hit. So if you go to listen to it, it's,
Well, it is interesting because it plays, if you read it literally, it plays like this is a positive thing, but the vibe I'm getting off of it and the fact that it's kind of like you mentioned, is used with a tone of irony, means that it's not necessarily a good thing.
Right. Right. Bandwagon Effect is an oil on canvas painting by Paweł Batura of Poland. The piece was created in 2021, and here's a little bit about the work. Quote, "The bandwagon effect is the tendency of an individual to acquire a particular style, behavior, or attitude because everyone else is doing it. It is a phenomenon whereby the rate of uptake of beliefs, ideas, fads, and trends increases with respect to the proportion of others who have already done so. As more people come to believe in something, others also hop on the bandwagon, regardless of the underlying evidence." End quote. The painting depicts faces in the bottom section that have different features. One has a beak. They look kind of monstrous and grotesque. The entire painting has a almost melting effect to the images. Think Salvador Dali, but not quite that melty. And it uses a rather kind of a muted color palette. So the colors are not very bold off of one another. There's also some different things thrown in there: an hourglass, a clock, and even a globe that's hanging in one portion. And it's just kind of bringing in a lot of different elements together. The phrase appears in the title of a nonfiction guidebook, Jumping on the Bandwagon, a litmus test for buying a livestock guardian dog, published in 2023, written by Tarma Sheena and photographed by Jordan Didonato. Here's the synopsis. Quote, "Interested in purchasing a livestock guardian dog for your farm, ranch, or homestead? These dogs are a unique breed group developed over thousands of years to defend their livestock, shepherds, and territory. We'll help you decide if they are the right dog for you." End quote.
What an interesting thing. I had no idea there was some sort of a bandwagon about getting livestock guardian dogs in 2023.
You never know what's going to be a trend.
I guess maybe they're capturing the post-COVID timeframe when a lot of people are moving out of cities and back into like smaller communities and more rural areas. So maybe they were just trying to catch the bandwagon of people moving back out of the urban areas into more rural areas and deciding whether or not
Right.
they wanted to have, you know, I don't know, a guard dog of some sort.
I would also think that if it's this specific of a set of breeds of animal of dogs, that it wouldn't take a very large increase in demand for it to be a trend for that. The phrase is used figuratively in a blog post on RA for All titled Jump on the Bestsellers Bandwagon, posted in February 2023. It suggests libraries embrace bestseller lists to increase patron engagement. Here's the start of the article. Quote, I have been mourning the loss of my favorite bestseller list, the USA Today bestseller list, which was discontinued on December 1st, 2022. I loved this list because it gathered the top 150 books that sold in a given week without worrying about what category said book fell in, who published it, and for what age. Literally just the 150 best-selling titles. It was an easy way to understand from one perspective what the most popular books were in the country at any snapshot in time. End quote. Our local library shares bestseller information, but also recommendations directly from the staff of the library. They also share book recs from others in the area, even teens who participate in the library's activities, which I think is really cool. Bandwagon Effect by Rudiger Schmidt-Beck was published on Oxford Bibliographies in 2023 and then updated May 23, 2024. Here's part of the introduction. Quote, the term bandwagon effect denotes a phenomenon of public opinion impinging upon itself. Conceptually, it is somewhat ambiguous, so that definitions in the literature vary. Often, it is defined as a tendency of people to affiliate with the winning side of a competition. More generally, it can be defined as an inclination of persons to join in their preferences or behaviors what they perceive to be existing or emerging majorities or dominant positions in society. This implies that success breeds further success, and alternatives that appear to enjoy a broad popular backing are likely to gain even stronger support. Sometimes it is correspondingly claimed that minorities or losing alternatives, because of their weakness, suffer further losses of support. In any case, the notion of bandwagon effects implies the idea that perceived public opinion exhibits the quality of a self-fulfilling prophecy. For public opinion perceptions, information conveyed by the mass media is crucial. Reporting on public opinion polls is the most important, but not the only, source of such impressions. The notion of the bandwagon effect started its scientific life as a rather vague idea without a well-developed theoretical basis. Accordingly, it lacked conceptual precision and proved empirically elusive. But a number of carefully designed studies have succeeded in demonstrating that bandwagon effects do exist. End quote. This piece is an annotated bibliography, meaning it provides a curated list of published works on the topic of the bandwagon effect, each accompanied by a brief overview or summary to help readers understand the content and relevance of each source. So it's not original research, instead it's a guide to some of the literature on the topic.
Yeah, this is an interesting abstract, and because I think there's a lot of elements to this, and that concept of it, you know, the implication of it being a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it really showcases the importance of factual reporting, and whether that's through a mainstream media source or whether that's through someone with a following on some social media site, or podcasters or whatever the case may be. Without that factualness, you can really drive misinformation and even disinformation by taking advantage of a group of people who are already listening to it and then capturing or replaying into what they already want to believe, that can get that snowball rolling and gather others as the information spreads, right?
Right.
And that bandwagon effect in that case can be, while it can be positive, we get a lot of examples of people who are frustrated with it, and I think that might lend towards some of the negative connotations that the term has taken on, especially when it comes to sports, where people are frustrated that, you know, I'm not getting my due credit because you are a bandwagon fan and I've been a fan even through the hard times, and
Yeah.
you're trying to get all the same thing, but
Mm-hmm.
that's it's not a zero sum in that situation, but there are other situations outside of sports where it is more of a zero sum, where one group coming into a position of power really can remove power from another group, and
Right.
that oftentimes that is a group that's in the minority who doesn't have as strong a voice. So
Right.
I think that's interesting where they talk about it, that sometimes it is correspondingly claimed that minorities are losing alternatives because of their weakness, suffer further losses of support,
Right.
and that is not, in most cases, I would say that isn't going to be a good thing.
Right. And one example of that is in news broadcasts when you hear things like people are upset about, people are frustrated or angry about something. That's sharing. That's not a factual report, right? You're
Right.
talking about what a group of people are upset about. The idea there is to either have people emotionally respond by fighting against it or by agreeing with it. And so the only goal there is to add people to a bandwagon. um, it's clear the bandwagon is a powerful force, pulling people together in unexpected ways. Whether you're on it or off, it's part of how trends and sometimes entire moments in history get their momentum. Sometimes they're good, and sometimes not so much. We just have to be careful not to get swept away. That's all we have for today. If you have any thoughts on the show or pop culture references we should have included, reach out to us on Patreon, patreon.com/bunnytrailspod, or comment on our website, bunnytrailspod.com.
All right, it is poll time. Recently, we asked our patrons, are you an extrovert or an introvert? Or maybe an ambivert? So here's a quick overview of each from Adam Grant of the TED Work Life podcast. Quote, extroverts tend to be outgoing and bold. They gravitate towards roles that put them in the center of attention. Introverts tend to be quiet and deliberative. They prefer one-on-one meetings, working on their own, and long walks on the beach. Just kidding. Ambiverts fall in the middle of the spectrum, and they're equally comfortable in leadership and supporting roles, and they tend to adapt to fill voids in their teams. End quote. Okay, so for our patrons, over 80% identified as introverts. Ambiverts were next, with only a small percentage identifying as extroverts.
Jan said, quote, introvert for sure. I work alone frequently. I'm not excited about speaking in front of people, yet I managed to end up in a career where I have to speak to large and small audiences from time to time. End quote. I'm an introvert as well. I do not work alone. I'm in a rather public facing role, but I've got a lot of practice, so I'm pretty good at it. Unfortunately, it does have a tendency to really wear me out at times because of that. So.
Yeah, the piece I read was just a really small snippet of what they had talked about on that podcast and what Adam Grant had wrote about. But based on the stuff that he wrote, I'm definitely an introvert. I often get confused as an extrovert by people who see me when I'm supposed to be in an on state. So I
Yeah.
thought maybe I'm an ambivert, but this seems to imply they're equally comfortable with both, and I am immeasurably uncomfortable in front of others. But I'm just good at what my dad would have called "suck it up, buttercut." So
Yeah.
I just kind of, I recognize that this is what has to get done, and I am going to put all of my energy into making this happen. So I will teach a class in front of 40 or 50 people, or do a lecture in front of 500 people, and then I will spend the rest of the night alone in the hotel working up the energy to do it all again the next day. So yeah, I am definitely an introvert, though I would recognize I can be outgoing. I can look calm, but and look like I'm enjoying the thing. But really, I would rather be by myself in doing my own things, reading a book or playing video games, or just sitting in my backyard and not having to people. That would be my preference, and it takes me a
Yeah.
while to refill my motivational charges so that I can go back out and do peopling again.
Yes.
And I definitely don't refill my charges by being around other people.
100%. Yeah, I feel that.
Well, as a reminder, our silly polls mean absolutely nothing and are not scientifically valid. And patrons of all levels, including our free tiers, can take part. Head over to patreon.com/bunnytrailspod to take this week's poll. Thanks for joining us. Well, we will talk to you again next week. Until then, remember, words belong to their users.